Hi, it's John Doyle with 180 Videos. We're on Absolute Essential number 8, Learning from Your Mistakes. Now, the life of a Christian who has become addicted to porn is one of misery. There are sometimes we feel some sense of hope. We've gone a short period of time trying our very best to stop, white-knuckling it, and begin to get some encouragement, but eventually we crash and burn, and we fear that we will never, ever be able to win this battle. That's a lie. Part of the problem is we underestimate several things. We underestimate the power of our sinful nature that lives inside of us and its ability to draw us back to porn. We also underestimate the power of the demonic forces wanting to destroy our lives. And we underestimate how powerfully addictive this behavior is and how strong our brain can crave the drugs that porn delivers. We become just like the alcoholic who's craving another drink, or a drug addict needing another fix just to try and feel normal again. Substance addictions, as well as behavioral addictions, create the situation where once the drugs or alcohol have helped you to feel high, over a period of time, however, your body adjusts and it needs the substances to increase, and then it needs the substances for you to stop feeling terrible and to just get through the day feeling normal again. Porn does the same thing. And it does not seem to matter who the person is or where he is or what he's in risk of losing. Recently, we are learning about Governor Cuomo of New York and his alleged inappropriate touching and talking with women in his office. Well, the count now is up to 4. I don't know what it is at this point. Another recent example, unfortunately, is the once highly esteemed Ravi Zacharias. I considered him one of the most brilliant Christian apologists ever. And after his death, we've learned of a long history of sexual sin and perhaps even rape of women in massage parlors. So I mentioned these two men who are currently in the news, but in reality, it could be any one of us, unless we're willing to admit that we have a problem and begin to take some serious steps to stop our addiction by learning and doing these absolute essentials for recovery. So this is number 8, and after this there'll be 2 more. From the beginning of my recovery, over 15 years ago, my wife and I set up some boundaries and some consequences that would happen if I crossed them. The first 2 were absolutes. If I had any kind of contact at all with any of the women that I had been involved with, then our marriage was over. It was finished. If I had any physical contact with any other woman other than my wife, our marriage was done. And those were completely understandable. And I'm glad she held strong to that because I've never crossed those boundaries. Why? Because it's a consequence I knew she would enforce, and I did not ever want our marriage to end. I really love my wife, and I love my family, and I didn't want to take the chance of losing it all, but it was a clear boundary with a very clear consequence. However, over the past 15 years and 9 months, I have had what we call falls. A fall is when I would either look at porn or masturbate or do both. Now that has happened 8 times since September 9th of 2005. It's not perfection, but it certainly is progress. And my wife was smart enough to know that even for a sex addict, there needed to be some grace. Now these falls were few and far between. I almost went 9 years. And I can say I have only had 1 fall in about 11 years. But I know that in each of the early stages of recovery, it's a terrible battle. You're crushed that your secret sin has been exposed. Your worst fears have been realized. Hopefully, you've told your spouse the truth, and now your marriage is in shambles, and you don't know if it will survive. Well, here's the sad reality. It might not survive. Or it might survive and not become the marriage both of you really want. And if you're single, and you don't have the motivation to save your marriage, but you do have the motivation to save yourself from the ongoing pain of sexual addiction. What I'm trying to say is, regardless of your marital status, single, married, separated, divorced, you need to grow in your recovery for yourself. My wife and I both learned that we needed to do the work that we needed to do on ourselves before we could ever begin to work on saving our marriage. And with that in mind, here is another absolute essential for anyone working on recovery from sexual brokenness. And that is this: we must learn from our mistakes. We do that in almost every area of our lives, right? In school, when you received a test back and you did not look at all the answers that you got correct, right? You looked for the red ink and the questions you got wrong. Athletes watch films after a game to study the wrong decisions they made in a certain play and what needs to be done to fix that problem. However, when it comes to the times we fall back into sexual sin, what do we do afterwards? Typically, we just want to sweep it under the rug. We want to minimize it. We want to rationalize it away and continue to do the same thing over and over and over again. Why? Because we don't learn from our mistakes. Now, I've confessed to my wife every one of the 8 falls that I've had, and she did not hesitate to grill me over them. Why did I choose to do that? What was I thinking? What was I feeling? Those are some of her questions. And I quickly learned that instead of me just telling her I had a fall, I came to her with all the answers to the questions I knew she was going to ask. It's like taking the bullets out of her gun. But it showed her that I was doing the work of recovery. It forced me to think through the whole situation, and in so doing, I was learning from my mistakes. And then, most importantly, I would tell her the new boundary that I needed to establish and the new consequence I would enforce if I crossed that boundary. You see, a boundary is like a guardrail along the highway. If you lose control of your car, it hits the guardrail and is stopped from going off the freeway and into a ditch or maybe even over a cliff. We all need guardrails in our lives if we're going to stop falling off the cliffs around us. And to keep us from intentionally going over the guardrail, we need to have consequences. Because a guardrail without a consequence is like a speed bump. You'll just go right over it. So making progress in your recovery will depend upon you learning from your mistakes, setting up new boundaries with stronger consequences. And that's a way you grow as you move further and further away from the cliff and closer to the Lord. This is John Doyle with 180 Videos. God bless you, my friends. Have a great day in the Lord, and we'll talk again soon.